And look who's here, former Arkansas governor, former federal prosecutor, Asa Hutchinson. Governor, it's good to see you. This fight could affect the 2024 race. Let's do it again. D.C. sources telling us, yes, House Republicans will likely subpoena Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg to testify about the push to indict former President Trump. Now, if Trump is indicted, this fight will go to D.C. It could bring in even possibly Biden's Justice Department. What do you make of all this? Do the House Republicans have a case to subpoena him?
Well, of course, the Congress has oversight responsibilities, and if you're looking at the Department of Justice, I was on Judiciary Committee. We had oversight. We held hearings on them, and there is a relationship that you could legitimately call them in and ask them questions as to what do you know about this, if you had any connections there. But the fact is, they're all going to say there's an ongoing criminal investigation. We're not going to be commenting on it. And it's a little bit even more different if you bring in a state prosecutor in an oversight type hearing. So we'll have to see how that develops. Let me emphasize that as a former prosecutor, this is not a case that I can see should be brought. I think that's important to remember. It's going to create so much chaos, as you said, in 2024. And what needs to happen is that Donald Trump ought to be accountable at the ballot box, and people ought to be able to make a decision. Obviously, I believe there ought to be alternatives to him, but I think this is a bad precedent whenever you are having to indict a former president or charge that. So it is problematic. It's not a case that I would bring, and I'm not sure that it's a wise course to have those hearings, though, in Congress. Yeah,
so the DA is defined. He says no way will he even answer to a subpoena. He says this is interference. Republicans say they have standing to do this, and they're talking about, yes, they will subpoena him if he does indict and even arrest Donald Trump. Let's take a listen to this. Watch this.
You know, I think it's inappropriate for Congress. This is not a Justice Department prosecution. This is a sovereign state. It's a municipal prosecutor. They don't have oversight authority over him. They don't have any business subpoenaing him to come explain himself.
This is not something that the Manhattan DA should be involved in. That's why Congress has asked for him to come explain to us what he's doing. We have oversight anywhere where we have legislative purview.
When the federal government is providing public safety grants to DAs across the country, including the Manhattan DA, Mr. Bragg's office, are these funds being used for the purposes that they were intended for public safety, or for a partisan purpose?
So, sir, you're a former prosecutor. You hear their case. House Republicans say they can do this because they think the DA's office may be misusing federal grant money meant to stop crime and for public safety. Plus, Congress oversees federal campaign laws. So, do you think that's enough standing to subpoena him?
Well, it's thin, but they can always ask about process. In other words, as they're saying, if there's federal money being used here, of course, the prosecutor is going to say, I can't comment on any ongoing cases, and he can answer questions about process. But the fact is, it's just going to create a tremendous outrage on every side with very serious issues going in our country. And so I would suspect that if I was a former prosecutor, the Department of Justice would step in and say there's not any way that we're going to have a U.S. attorney testifying in reference to an ongoing criminal investigation.
But if it's shut, but what if it's over? But what if it gets tossed or it's shut? Maybe they will bring him in. Would he have to then testify? He may fight the subpoena.
Well, sure. I mean, down the road, once it's all over with, that's an appropriate level of inquiry as to, one, did you use any federal funds on this? But also, this is traditionally a campaign finance violation allegation. And so what's the basis that you're exercising state jurisdiction over it? And so that's a proper inquiry once all of the issues are out on the table or after the case is resolved. Then you can ask those questions.
You know, the rhetoric is heating up. The president of the teachers union, Randy Weingarten, says it's anti-Semitic to talk about how George Soros backs DA Bragg. That feels like a stretch. No one is really talking or thinking about that. And Trump is getting criticized for slamming the DA, claiming his arrest will lead to, quote, death and destruction. He called DA Bragg, quote, an animal. People not liking that at all. He's going after DeSantis. And then we have Mike Pence weighing in with Maria Bartiromo this morning saying, you know, this media obsession with this story and what's going on with Trump is this drama about Trump is not helping people get back to work, to find jobs or fix the economy. Where do you come down on all of this?
Well, exactly right. That where I come down on it is that I don't want the focus of our country on whether the former president had classified documents. We want to get those back in because it's important for our national security. But you got a special prosecutor looking at that. You've got the state prosecutor investigating, and in Georgia as well. This is not as significant as the issues that face our families in inflation and high interest rates. Yeah. That's what we ought to be focusing on. And I believe these issues should be resolved at the ballot box. I don't want them playing really into Trump's hands. And he's really acting like a typical criminal defendant that's not listening to his lawyers saying, don't comment on these things.
Got it.
And that's exactly what he's doing.
Asa Hutchinson, a pleasure to have you on this Friday night. It's good to see you. Look who's back.